Good morning, students. Today I am going to teach the third unit supplementary. The title of the supplementary is The Three Questions, written by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy was a Russian writer who is regarded as one of the greatest authors of all time. He was best known for the novel War and Peace. Once there lived a king. He had three questions in his mind. He was very anxious to find the answers for his three questions. The three questions were: what was the right time to begin everything? Second one is: who was the right person to listen to? And the third question is: what was the most important thing to do? The king announced throughout his kingdom that anyone who gave the correct answer for his questions would be rewarded. Learned men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. In reply to the first question, that is, to know the right time, some said that one should have a time plan of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. Others declared that it was impossible to decide the correct time. So, one should avoid idle pastime and attend only to the needful. Next, it was told that it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action. So, the king should have a council of wise men to fix the correct time for everything. Finally, the king was recommended to consult magicians because only magicians know beforehand what was going to happen. Various answers were given to the second question: who was the right person to listen to? The people said that the king needed his counselors, priests, and doctors. Some said that the warriors were the most needed people. For the third question on the important thing to do, the answers got were science, skill in warfare, and religious worship. The king was not satisfied with the answers he got because different answers were given by different people. But the king wished to find the right answers to his questions. He decided to consult a hermit. Hermit is a person who prefers to live alone without contact with other people. In Tamil, we called him Turavi. The hermit lived in a wood, that is forest. He never go away from the forest, and he received only common people. So the king wore simple clothes and get off from his horse before reaching the hermit's cell. When the king approached the hermit, he was digging the ground in front of his hut. Seeing the king, he greeted him and went on digging. He breathed heavily when he stuck his spade into the ground and turned a little earth. The hermit was digging the ground with difficulty. Here we can see that the hermit was digging the ground with his spade. The king went near him and said that he had come to ask him to answer 3 questions and listed the 3 questions. First one, how can he learn to do the right thing at the right time? Second one is, who are the people he needed the most and to whom should he pay more attention? And the third one is, what was the most important thing to do? The hermit listened to the king, but he answered nothing. Then he took his spade and again started digging the earth. Seeing the tired hermit, the king offered to dig for him. The hermit thanked him and gave the spade to the king. He sat down on the ground to take rest. When the king had dug 2 beds, he stopped and repeated his questions and waited for the answers. The hermit gave no answer. He rose from that place and stretched out his hand for the spade. That is, he asked the spade back to dig the ground. But the king did not give the spade. He continued to dig till the evening. At that time, someone came running. The king and the hermit went to see who it was. They saw a bearded man came running out of the wood. He was stabbed in the stomach and blood was flowing out of it. He reached the king, felt weak and fell fainting on the ground. The king and the hermit unfastened, that is, removed the man's clothing. There was a large wound in his stomach. The king washed his wound and bandaged it with his handkerchief and a towel. Soon the bandage was soaked with warm blood. So the king removed it, washed the wound and rebandaged it. At last the blood was stopped flowing. The man came back to consciousness and asked something to drink. The king brought fresh water and gave it to him. The man drank the water. The sun set and it had become cool. So the king and the hermit carried the wounded man into the hut. They laid him on the bed. The man closed his eyes and slept. The king was so tired from his walk, from the digging work with the spade, and from putting all his effort to save the bearded man. So he slept soundly through the short summer night. In the morning, the bearded man asked for the king's forgiveness. But the king did not know him. The bearded man was actually the king's enemy. He had come there to take revenge on the king. The king had executed his brother. Executed means kill somebody as an official punishment. The king had executed his brother and seized his property. So the bearded man, as a revenge, came to kill the king on his way back. But the king's bodyguard saw him and wounded him. The bearded man felt sorry for his bad intention. He begged the king to forgive him. He said that he would serve the king as his most faithful slave along with his family. The king was glad to make peace with his enemy so easily. He was happy that he had gained a friend. He forgave the bearded man. He promised to send his servants and his own physician, that is, doctor, to attend him. The king also promised to restore his property, that is, giving back his property. Having taken leave of the wounded man, the king went out into the porch and looked around for the hermit because he wanted answers for his 3 questions. The hermit was outside on his knees sowing seeds in the beds that had been dug the day before by the king and the hermit. The king approached him and asked him to answer his questions before he left him. The hermit told that it had been already answered. The king asked how he answered and what did he mean, because he didn't hear any answers from the hermit. The hermit replied that if the king had not pitied his weakness yesterday and had not dug those beds for him, he had gone his way and the bearded man would have attacked him. So the most important time was when the king was digging the beds. The most important man was the hermit. And to do good for the hermit was the king's important business. Afterwards, the most important time was when the king attended the bearded man. because if the king had not bound up his wounds, he would have died. So, he was the most important man. The most important business or the action was what the king did for the murdered man. That is, he made peace with him. Thus, the hermit gave answer for the king's three questions. So, in the first incident, the most important time was when the king was digging the beds. The most important man was the hermit. And to do good for the hermit was the king's important business. In the second incident, the most important time was when the king attended the bearded man. The bearded man was the most important man. The most important business was what the king did for the bearded man. Thus, the hermit gave answer for the king's three questions with example. Then the hermit asked the king to remember that the most important time was the only time when he had any power. The most necessary person was the one with whom he was. And the most important affair or the thing was to do that person good. Because for that purpose alone was the man sent into that life. At last, the king was clear and he was satisfied with the answers he got for his three questions from the hermit. I hope you understood how the king got answers for his three questions. Now let us see the book exercise. The first one, choose the correct answer from the options given below. The first question is, the king wanted to know the answers for dash questions. The options are 3, 5 and 9. As we know, in the title itself it was given that the answer is 3. So the king wanted to know the answers for 3 questions. Second one, the hermit lived in a dash. Options are cottage, palace and wood. Yes, the answer is wood. The hermit lived in a wood, that is forest. Third one, dash widely renowned for his wisdom. Wisdom means knowledge. Options are hermit, messengers and warriors. The correct answer is hermit. Hermit widely renowned for his wisdom. So only the king approached the hermit to get answers for his 3 questions. Yes, the second one, fill in the blanks. First one, the answer for the first question was to have a dash to fix the proper time for everything. They asked the king to have a council of wise men. So the answer is, the answer for the first question was to have a council of wise men to fix the proper time for everything. Second one, dash were referred to know the right time for every action. Answer is magicians. Magicians were referred to know the right time for every action. Third one, the king decided to consult a dash. The king decided to consult a hermit. The third exercise is who said these words? First one, we already studied that. Identify the characters and speakers. Like that, the heading is something different. That is, who said these words. But you are going to find out who spoke these words. First one, they all answered his questions differently. The answer is the learned man. Second one, how can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? The answer is the king said these words. Third one, now rest a while and let me walk a bit. The hermit. In section 2, we have some more exercises. The first one is write true or false for the following statement. The first statement is, the bearded man was an enemy of the king. Yes, we know that the bearded man was an enemy of the king. So, the statement is true. Second one, the king and the hermit refused to help the wounded man. No, it is false statement because both the king and the hermit helped the wounded man. So the statement is false. Third one, the wounded man asked for the king's forgiveness. Yes, this statement is true because in the morning the bearded man, that is the wounded man, asked for the king's forgiveness. So this statement is true. The fourth one, the king promised to restore the property of the bearded man. Yes, it is the true statement. Now, the first one, the bearded man was an enemy of the king. True. Second one, the king and the hermit refused to help the wounded man. False. The wounded man asked for the king's forgiveness. True. The king promised to restore the property of the bearded man. True. Yes, the next one. Mark the words in column A and the meaning in column B. Here in column A, four words are given. Physician, restore, repent, ambush. Now you are going to choose the correct meaning from the next column, that is column B. For the first one, physician, the answer is medical practitioner, that is doctor. Second one, restore. Answer is bring back. Repent. The answer is regret. Ambush. The answer is surprise attack. Yes, thus we matched the words given in column A with the meanings given in column B. Thank you students. Let us continue in our next class.